Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce to you now. Olaf Kock is a returning guest on our show. Be sure to check out his first appearance on episode 796 of Boundless Body Radio. Olaf Kock is working in the software business, currently in technical sales. Ever since finding the ketogenic diet in 2012, he ran a 1-month experiment with this way of eating that has never stopped. As a self-described nerd, he found the ketogenic diet through a podcast on software security out of pure chance. His experiment has evolved through several flavors since then, but as far as Olaf is concerned, the experiment never ended and he is still ketogenic to this day. As he often is answering the same questions, he recently built a German and English language website called butterbay.de to simulate the glucose and insulin relationship in order to illustrate what happens in the body and make the otherwise hidden processes visible without the need to wear a continuous glucose monitor. The website has since developed into a source of nutritional information based on his findings that the cause and effect relationship typically perceived in nutrition can easily be twisted around. Together with his dog Fiete, he lives in Hamburg, Germany, which makes both of them authentic and actual, wait for it, hamburgers. Olaf Kock, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you back to Boundless Body Radio.
Hello, Casey. What an honor it is to be back.
It is such an honor to host you. I have to be the bearer of bad news and just let you know that your website is terribly out of date.
You're right. I'm still working on that. On the other one. One of them is quite current, yes.
One of them is quite current and will be the topic of conversation for today. But that line that you caught me with at the very, very end of our episode last time was so funny. I thought it was amazing that you actually own the domain terriblyoutofdate.com, so you can tell everybody that your website is terribly out of date, which it is.
It is. I'm working on it. It is somewhere already on my disk, but it's not yet ready to be published. So there is an old one, but I have a new one, which is a lot more easy to the eye.
Yeah, well, it is very current. The new website is absolutely amazing. You've created an incredible tool that I wanted to talk to you about today that we mentioned in the introduction. Before we do, man, it's been over a year since you've been on the show. You and I have chatted back and forth through different mediums between then. But can you remind us kind of your journey and how you got to use the carnivore diet for some of your own health issues and how that eventually evolved to trying a carnivore diet?
Sure. I'll go the very short route. Basically, the diagnosis that I was given is diverticulitis or diverticulosis. So little small pouches in the colon where sometimes some of the residue gets stuck and inflamed. So from time to time, they told me it'll gonna be happen because it's mechanical and it's just inevitable. It will happen again. And it did. So this was ever since 2011 when I was diagnosed and hospitalized with it. It came back every now and then. After a while, I figured actually there is something in nutrition. 2012 I found keto. And then after a while I found that almonds actually trigger it reliably. So anytime I had yogurt with almond butter, great. I love it. I love the taste. But it twitches in the belly, it gets inflamed, and it's not fun. So I have experimented a bit more, and after a while, and that's now 1.5 years ago, found carnivore, or as I like to talk about it, because it's less offensive to some people, zero fiber. And this zero fiber basically meant that I am completely symptom-free ever since. Apart from 2 occasions, I can say now. One I've already had last time when I had my parents for dinner over and I accidentally, just out of habit, prepared 3 identical plates with some onions, some mushrooms. And I figured, yeah, well, don't be a sissy. You didn't die from it before, so you'll have it. And that night, another twitch, another inflammation, and it was easy. It went away. And another one very recently when I just had tiny little pieces of, I don't know what it was, like a stuffed bell pepper, but a tiny one, like this size of an olive, and I don't know, like kind of like that, an olive, 1 or 2 bell peppers stuffed with cream cheese. And that night it twitched again. So I'm I'm still convinced it's not worth figuring out what will trigger anything and what doesn't. So the only plants that I know for sure that don't trigger it are coffee and wine.
Gotcha.
In the fermented form.
Yeah, so, gotcha. I think you mentioned last time, even the wine is very rare for you. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Got it.
It's about, last time I said about 2 bottles a month or so. And it's sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's none. So
gotcha.
It's like it's on average 2 a month or so. So it's not really.
Got it. Okay, so back in 2012, when you found the ketogenic diet, did you try the ketogenic diet because you learned it would be good for digestion, or did you do it for a different reason?
Well, the introduction contained the self-described nerd, and I just heard about what fat metabolism does to the body and to the brain, and I figured I'm going to try that. I have to try that. It was just intellectual curiosity.
Got it.
And yeah, when I tested, when I checked that for a month, I was so blown away that month, September 2012, it never ended.
Wow. And what were you so blown away by? Like, what were some of your results that you achieved in that month?
It's just the main, the focus all over, like being able to focus, not being hungry, not worrying about this or that. It's just, if I eat, I eat. If I don't eat, I don't eat. Actually, yesterday, today I had a doctor's appointment, so I had to come without breakfast for giving blood. And Saturday, I've been wanting to stop coffee, to try to stop coffee for a while. You know, I can do that anytime. But Saturday I actually did. Sunday I also did. Didn't have breakfast. Went to the garden, did this and that on the day. And at 8 o'clock on Sunday, I figured, did I eat something today? So Sunday evening, I figured I didn't eat anything. And then I was just wondering, like, how late should I eat when I should come, without having eaten anything to the doctor? So I just skipped it until this lunch, and who cares? It's just that the piece of being able. So I literally just forgot, and when I thought of it, it was too late. I didn't want to eat at 8.
Yeah, wow. It would just be stunning for somebody who wasn't familiar with this way of eating. I think a lot of us are quite familiar with that kind of feeling where you might get a little bit of a twinge of hunger and it ends up passing, and you can go an incredible amount of time without eating. So I absolutely love that. You mentioned the way you kind of describe your diet as a no fiber diet. Was that pretty surprising to you to learn that fiber is actually something that would be problematic for somebody with digestive issues?
Yes and no. One of the aspects is whenever there is an acute inflammation, you're told to rest your gut and eat a bland, no fiber or low fiber diet. And right after that, like when it's gone, then you should push in the fiber and whole grain and all of the stuff that made you sick immediately. And for some reason, that didn't make any sense anymore. And so I figured, as I heard more and more about, in the ketogenic world, about carnivore, I figured, why not try that? Actually, it's another intellectual curiosity, but I now know that certain foods actually trigger my diverticulitis. And ever since then, last time when I was last on, I spoke about a 2023 inflammation, which came up with a CRP of 129.
Yeah, crazy high.
So I can easily, happily go without 50, without 10. I'm very happy where I currently am, and I don't need this constant twitching and I won't say pain, but sometimes it is pain, sometimes it's just a twitch. But when there's a twitch, you know what it is, and it's like, how far does it develop? I don't know, and I don't want it to develop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I totally understand that. I told you last time I have a loved one that suffers with diverticulitis, and it seems terribly painful when a flare up comes. And I
Yes.
was recently hosted on a podcast, and the host, Dave Feldman, asked me what things I changed my mind about in the last year. And the first thing that came to mind was how I oscillate between, talking about or recommending a very strict carnivore diet for people. For a long time, that was kind of my thing. Of course, you and I, we don't tell anybody what they should eat or shouldn't eat or whatever, but we answer questions when people ask, and we can be an example for others.
Yep.
And so after I learned about a carnivore diet, I wanted to, preach it to everybody out there and tell everybody about it. And then after a while, you realize like a lot of people don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear about it. They're not ready for it. That's fine. So you also kind of soften things. Like I'll say like, hey, I am more strict. I have coffee and a few other things like you, but very few. And when I go off my diet, it really punishes me. But that's not to say that everybody can't moderate a little bit. And so my answer to that question was like, sometimes I think we should be a little bit softer and tell people that they don't have to be carnivore. But also you see so many people who do take that final step and do have to be really, really strict, and they find healing. And it's almost like maybe I should be telling more people about a kind of a stricter version of carnivore. At the end of the day, it's everybody's decision, but it's interesting to contemplate like what results people get when they do take that final step and really get serious about a carnivore diet, at least for a few months.
Yeah. And sometimes it feels like some conspiracy. I'll really have to say that because it's like so against the common wisdom. I'll have to say that, right? Like it feels weird. It feels so conspiracy theory, but I don't know who said it. It is like which might have been on your show, might have been on somebody else's. It's which study is the most important one that you will follow. Is that a randomized controlled trial? Is that an N=1? Is that an epidemiological study? And the answer is it's an N=1 study if the N is yourself. So
well said. I believe it was Dr. Peter Bruckner who said that on stage at a conference that I was at, and it really, really sunk in that like,
yeah,
we can experiment with this. Again, we're not out telling people what they need to do, but hopefully encouraging people to try for themselves and see what does work. And like we talked about last time, like this is all to benefit you. It's not to be hard on you. It's supposed to be for your own benefit.
Yeah. And ever since I looked into the matter, I feel like all of the puzzles fall into place. While before, I was like, oats are great. Oats are the greatest food you can have if you ask any nutritionist or doctor. Sometimes you got to moderate it a bit, so to limit the sugar from it, the blood sugar. Of course, nobody will tell you about the sugar, but so they're great. Sometimes they aren't. Fiber is great. Sometimes it isn't. And this saturated fat is bad. And I call fiber and saturated fat now Schrödinger's duo of nutrition. Because basically fiber is great because the bacteria will fabricate some saturated fat short chain and medium chain fatty acids from it, which are saturated fats, but saturated fats are bad. But you have to have fiber so that you can have saturated fat. And all of that butyrate that the bacteria just poop out, it's very important to you, unless it's coming from beta-hydroxybutyrate, from the other side of the barrier. It doesn't really make sense. So to me, they're Schrödinger's duo. You never know if they're good or bad, depending on who you ask and in which context you ask.
Yeah. Well said. I love that. I'll tell people like with plants, any kind of plants that you are bringing into your diet, it's just a question mark. Like you mentioned, the time that you had just a few onions and mushrooms. Is that going to have a severe effect on everybody? Like probably not, but you had one after cutting them out. I've had that before too. And it sucks. And there's just always that question mark with those foods. And you're right. Like it doesn't make a lot of sense the way that people explain it. One of the things that you had to learn when you went on a carnivore diet and how this works inside the body is kind of learning about the calories in, calories out theory of nutrition in particular, especially as it pertains to weight balance. Can you tell us what you've learned in particular about the calories in, calories out idea that, if somebody is trying to control their weight, or maybe they want to lose weight, they have to pay attention to the calories that they're burning and increase that, and the calories that they're consuming and decrease that?
Yeah, let me see if I actually can point to the new website where, after a while of building it, I figured there is a bit more that I want to have it. Otherwise, it would be a one shot. Like, you go there, you have seen it, you have understood it, and you go away. So I figured let's write a little bit. And after a couple of articles that I didn't even publish, I think I found my tone and an aspect that I can communicate on. I'm coming from the software business, so I'm not a medical specialist. I am not educated on this. Well, I'm self-educated on this, so I would say I am educated on this, but not formally. And all of the information that suddenly fell into the right place. Before, it was all definitions, like this. You got to learn all of the definitions. Like, this is when oats are good. This is when you should limit them. This, and so on. And after looking at the principles behind it, suddenly it all makes sense, and it supports each other, other than just being a definition of doing something. So I couldn't fathom going into an education now, into a certification, to be a nutritionist right now. I've been toying with the idea to do something with nutrition rather than software, but I don't think that would be a viable option without any formal certification. So what I came up with is, coming back to calories in, calories out, is basically a twist of cause and effect. And there's a couple of articles that I wrote on the site. There's Butter. Well, this is a pronunciation. This is funny. Butterby.de. The term comes from a phrase in German, an idiom, which is Butter bei die Fische, butter with a fish, or it is let's get down to brass tacks is one of the translations that I found. So let's speak clear text in this. Butter bei die Fische is a bit grammatically wrong. That site, butterby.de, butter like butter, bei.de. So that has one of these articles and a couple of others on hunger, on calories, and on, actually I have to look that up, a couple of other aspects on food. On don't feed the animals. Like, why shouldn't you feed the animals? Because they get sick. What do they get? Well, all of the Western civilization illnesses and sicknesses that are non-communicable. So don't feed them any grains, but eat your bread, eat your whole grain, because that's good for you. How long does it take for a goose to get fatty liver, which is several times the weight of its own liver? It's 2 weeks, 3 weeks of force feeding it grain. Granted, it's force feeding, but it's only 2 or 3 weeks. The difference between the goose and humans is humans will end up dying of their fatty liver. Geese don't die of their fatty liver. They die because of their fatty liver. So they will be killed because of their fatty liver, but they don't die of it. They get slaughtered just before, but so to them it doesn't really make a difference. Oh, and my favorite one is the article about the preferred fuel, because of the illustration that I found for it, which is and the arguments on what is the preferred fuel for the body. That the typical way of telling you about this is that, ketones and the fat metabolism is the emergency mode of your body when it doesn't have enough sugar to burn, which means sugar will be burned first. However, is sugar the preferred fuel? If I ask you, you will immediately know, no, it's not the preferred fuel, but the common audience will they have been told that this is the preferred fuel. Now, it is immediately obvious that whatever is burned first is not the preferred fuel if you add the third fuel, which is alcohol. As soon as you add alcohol, it will be burned first. Everything else will be just stuffed away. We'll take care of the most toxic substance right now. Is alcohol the preferred fuel? It's burned first. Actually, it would be a nice living if alcohol was the preferred fuel. Maybe it wouldn't be preferable, I don't know, but that basically tells me no, neither alcohol nor sugar is the preferred fuel, but it is what needs to be taken care of first, and then we can go for the actual fuel. And the visualization that I found is a fuel gauge in a car, which basically has a tiny section of like full, half, quarter, and then all of the rest is reserve. So basically you have your fuel tank, which is the sugar, and then you have, let's say, what is that? Not quite 3/4 of the circle is then reserve. And I would say the image is not even close to be proportional in the size. So all of these aspects, cause and effect, the common knowledge, to just play with it. Sometimes I'm ranting. Sometimes I'm just being a little bit sarcastic. I make a couple of points for why I still think I am in sync with the German Nutritional Society, because they explicitly target people between 18 and 65, no, healthy people between 18 and 65 who are eating a mixed diet. So I am fully in sync with them, eating only meat. Number one, I'm not eating a mixed diet, so their advice is not for me. Number two, I'm not healthy, as are 90% of the population. So why should I eat whatever I can tolerate while I am healthy if that made me sick? And then, I don't know, I don't see that I should eat something that already made me sick. And now that I've worked against it, I am healthy again. Now I can eat whatever I can tolerate until I'm sick again. I don't know. So I consider myself as still sick because it's a mechanical condition. It doesn't go away. I will live with that until the end of my life. That's the diverticulitis. Diverticulosis, actually, it's not inflamed, so it's just the pouches. So I consider myself as not healthy, which means their advice doesn't really apply to me.
Yeah. So ironic. You mentioned ketosis as like the emergency state, and that's the way my nutrition certification kind of treated it. In this book behind me, this textbook that I had to pass off a test for to become a nutrition coach, the ketosis is mentioned in one sentence in the entire book. The book's like 700 pages. And it just says when the body burns fat, the body slips into a state of ketosis and makes ketones. It makes it look like it's the emergency because that's all the attention they give it. But that is actually more likely the default state. The opposite is true, where burning off sugar should be the emergency state. We just don't see it that way.
Yeah, the German Nutritional Society has an explicit document which is guidelines for fat. They have that for every macronutrient, for every macronutrient, and in the study that accompanies this guideline for fat, they mention ketosis, I think, in 2 places. So I think there's 3 times that Control F keto finds something, and one of them explicitly names ketosis as a metabolical derailment, which so as they claim science backed, I can't really take them seriously on that alone.
No, definitely not. Yeah, that's insane at this point. Okay, so you're learning all of this stuff. You start writing. I agree with you. I really do think you found your kind of writing style. Your blogs are really well done and have a certain flavor to them, which I really enjoy. But also on the website, there's a tool that you showed me as you were kind of piloting things and trying to get people to kind of help you out with testing it. Tell us about the simulator tool and how you envisioned it. and started putting it together?
Mhm. So this is what started me thinking about this site. I had a bit of time at my hand and figured I got to work on some new technology in the web world and learn a little bit more technology. Then you need a purpose. Over the past years, actually over the past 12 years, whenever I spoke to someone about what I'm doing nutritionally, what I had to explain most was blood sugar. Well, blood sugar as the first concept, but then the derived concept is insulin. And blood sugar is quite visible. They can see that they can measure that, but insulin, you don't measure that. And it's not very well known what happens. Plus, when insulin is considered the key hormone in weight gain or weight loss, it is hard to visualize it if all you get, if you're lucky, is a single number. You go to your doctor and you get one blood drawn, not having eaten anything, and that's it. It doesn't teach you anything. So I figured, let's build something that visualizes the insulin, because anytime I did that on paper, just with a couple of pens, and I drew, like, this is what blood sugar looks like, this is then what insulin looks like, and this is what it does when insulin is raised. I figured, let's automate that and build a site where you can actually try this.
Well, you did an amazing job. How are you collecting information to be able to set up all the different curves based on like the different foods you can select and bring into the maybe I'm asking the wrong question. Maybe I need to back up and maybe have you describe like what actually this tool is and how it works for people.
Maybe this is the time to go a little bit in video mode. So for all of the audio listeners, I'll do a screen share, but you can go to the site and just look for it yourself. It will be very brief, and I'll try to bring through everything on the audio track as well. Yeah. But anybody who is watching the video, hold on, will be able to follow along.
Yeah, so Olaf and I talked about this offline. This is a really good one to be watching if you want to see the visuals. We'll tag the YouTube video in here as well. But like Olaf said, we'll be as descriptive as we can if you're listening and not watching. But we definitely recommend pulling up the YouTube video for this one, because this section in particular is pretty cool to be able to see. This tool is very comprehensive.
Yeah. So the simulator is linked from the homepage. The page is available in English and German, and what you see is you have a simulation here, a graph, and you have a list of meals. And what you can do is you can start your day, which means the graph here starts to grow, and then you can say, I am going to eat now breakfast, which is oatmeal with berries. And let's do something that actually does something, Greek yogurt with honey. So this is your podcast is the wrong audience for this, but we are doing this now. And then what you can see here is you can see the glucose raise immediately. This is the meal that we had, and then it goes up and down over a while, and it goes down a little bit further. Insulin goes up, it's the blue curve, and you can now see what happens. And what happens if you add a steak on top, which you can do. I'm not doing that right now, but it's basically now you can eat at any time anything that you want. You see, if I add 3-4 steaks, nothing much happens, and it doesn't really go up. What you then can do is, let's pause this. And you can change a couple of the layers here, which means you can look at for example, the elevated baseline, elevated insulin. That's what I wanted, which gives you a little bit of a blue shade in here. So all of this is already slightly elevated, all of this one. So what you can look at, what you can explain is the insulin as being higher. And how long is it higher than usual? And what you can compare is, for example, a day of the standard diet. I did that in one of the articles. A day of the standard diet with all of the same meals. once spread over 12 hours, and then the same meals condensed into 4 hours. So basically a 20 to 4 fast, intermittent fast, with a huge difference in insulin. And if anybody is wondering why does the same food condensed into a smaller time make a big difference, then that is something that you can explain on this, because insulin will be low for a while. And then what you can do is you can play with a couple of presets here. You can say, if I am pre-diabetic, then my insulin starts higher, my glucose starts higher, and this will look quite different. Something else? No, we have. No, that's basically the core. And then in the day plans, what you can do is you can go for a full day plan. Let's say I have here this is the standard diet, 24 interval fasting, which I mentioned, and I can go into that simulation immediately. This is on the pre-diabetic preset, and if I'm on the healthy profile preset, you can see that this actually, let me see, for 24 hours has insulin raised over roughly half the day, and it's very low for half of the other day, half of the rest of the day. While if I do the standard diet as a standard diet, let me see, sample A standard diet is here. Then we'll see that insulin is actually higher for longer.
It looks like an absolute roller coaster.
Yes.
The blood sugar. So what we're looking at is a standard, the kind of standard diet where somebody's eating every 2 to 3 hours. It's hard since I'm recording on my phone. It's hard for me to see the actual foods. But would most say dietitians say that the meals that you have chosen on this day are healthy, quote unquote?
Yes, let me see. What do we have here? Oatmeals with berries, medium apple, grilled chicken with white rice, Greek yogurt with honey, spaghetti bolognese, mixed nuts.
Any dietitian would tell you that is a good, healthy day. You're getting plenty of fiber. You're eating every 2 to 3 hours. And again, what I'm looking at is an absolute roller coaster in the blood sugar where it's spiking up and down severely. I'm very afraid of heights. I do not like roller coasters very much. This would not be my favorite day. And then you're right. You mentioned that the insulin is below that, and you see that blue line and how elevated it is throughout the entire day once the meals start.
Yep. So it never really goes down to baseline, and it is basically it's just before you wake up. It's low. There are a couple of the simulation could be changed a bit to flow over to the morning. As you see here, it starts at baseline and then it leaves the day. At the end of the day, it's above baseline, so that doesn't wrap around. It is not a perfect simulation, but what you can do is you can actually go in and get some simulation. What happens if I do this for a long time? One warning though, so there are a couple of reports here, meal analysis, which tells you something about all of the content of your food, and then projections, what happens if I eat that for a long time. Warning, this is not yet tuned, and the algorithms will go wild. They will show up or down, yes, but they are definitely wrong. And none of this is tuned to any particular organism yet. That is actually one of the other topics that I have been looking forward to check if you can help me with that. Actually, not you, but your audience can help me with that. Yeah,
absolutely.
So let me see. Should we get out here for now? I can go for the. No, I won't show the projections here because they're just they're not tuned algorithms. But there you can see where I want to bring the site, where you can basically say this is how I eat, and then the algorithm behind that can tell you, oh, with this you will end up pre-diabetic. Yeah. And it is over stressing some of the factors. So right now you can turn yourself into a pre-diabetic in 3 weeks of simulation, because why bother? This is running in a few seconds anyway, so we might as well completely go over the top. And it doesn't really matter if it's a year, if it's 10 years, or if it's 3 weeks. That doesn't really matter. The direction is what's important. But it is completely untuned, so it goes wild. It has a couple of things that are absolutely not tuned yet. And same with the insulin curve. What I am looking for is, your audience will be a stretch for that too, is people with a continuous glucose monitor who are willing to share their graphs and what they ate. And that would be most interesting for people if they have this graph from a time when they were not carnivore or not keto. Because keto carnivore graphs are like a dead graph. Like if you're in a hospital, the EKG or however that's called in English, I don't know, the pulse. So carnivore graphs are quite boring and they don't tell you anything. I'm wondering, it's like, is the height of the hills, is that high enough? Is that too high? And the width, like how quickly does it go up? How quickly does it go down? I don't know. All of this data, I would say, intellectually makes sense, but is absolutely not tuned with any real organism. So yeah. I'm trying to find people who are eating a standard diet, or somewhat of a standard diet, or from time to time a standard day, and are willing to share their graphs and their meal plans with that, so that I can tune and make it a bit more realistic. I'm quite happy with the actual simulation with just the graph, that it just makes sense. There are a couple of things that are certainly wrong still, but it's good enough, and it's an educational tool. It's not a clinical tool. Yeah, that's sure. Very important to know. If you want to know your actual numbers, wear a CGM. You get the glucose from that. You don't get the insulin from that. But this is kind of what makes sense in terms of insulin.
Yeah, definitely. So anybody out there who is using a CGM that can contribute some of that data, that sounds like that would be very, very helpful. Olaf, it's an amazing tool. And I have to say, what it kind of reminds me of is we've hosted Dr. Sean O'Mara and his counterpart, Dr. Anna Rosa, and they work with measuring visceral fat. And they've always made the case that it's one thing to get a number for visceral fat, like a DEXA scan will give you a number for how many pounds of visceral fat you have. But to really impact somebody, you have to see it. You need a picture of it, because when you just get the number, you're not really impacted by that. When you see that this is your body, this is what's going on inside your body, this is what's happening, this is what we just measured right now, it's way more impactful for people, and they're way more likely to change. And somebody could go like you and get your blood work and, fast for the test and keep everything as consistent as possible. You're still just getting a snapshot of where your numbers are for right now. Like, I'll just tell people, getting your blood work is like, taking a picture of the freeway, but you don't know exactly, is it Monday at 8 a.m.? Is it Friday night at 11 p.m.? Is it Sunday morning? Like, there's so much context. You don't really know. And again, you try to keep everything consistent by doing fasting and all that kind of thing. But to actually see the graph and see those things moving, it makes such a bigger difference to kind of get that visualization of like, wow, this meal really impacts not only my blood sugar, but also my insulin. And I'm trying to control my insulin. I'm trying to get what you're describing is my favorite kind of a roller coaster, really boring one. My favorite kind of a bike ride is, flat, no hills. Is great.
Yep.
And go
bike,
faster.
Definitely. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. No hills. It's really amazing to see that visual.
Yeah. This is also something that I've heard from several people who said first thing they do with their clients is put a CGM on them. And don't change your meals, don't change your diet, just wear it and see what it does. And with this tool, you can actually do it. You can check a whole month within an hour and just see what it does. And you can even tune it to a couple of parameters, as you've seen the presets. So there's a healthy pre-diabetic and a diabetic preset, which basically start with higher insulin, higher blood glucose, and so the average just starts higher up. And it will also immediately teach you why, as a diabetic, you have a very hard time to lose any weight, just because there's so much insulin around at all times, it doesn't really go down. But it needs to if you ever want to get access to your fat stores.
Yeah, good point. It's a really good point. And to be fair, we've been talking mostly about prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, which again is lifestyle inflicted, and you're going to have constantly elevated, really high insulin levels. Think about what an amazing tool this would be for somebody with type 1 diabetes or parents of kids with type 1 diabetes, as they're trying to control these numbers and they're being told like your kid needs to eat the carbohydrates and just make sure you give them the appropriate amount of insulin to cover the carbohydrates. You can see the opposite and how much easier managing type 1 diabetes would be if that curve is more flat. It's called the law of small numbers. And if you're eating more of the proteins and fats, you can visually see that the need for insulin is so much lower. What an amazing tool for them.
Have you already played with the tool? Because that is one of the aspects that I actually have built in.
So I have played with it as recently as just before coming on here. I played with it extensively yesterday. You told me about it a few months ago, and I've been playing with it since. But I didn't even notice that part about it.
Okay, so if you want to try that out, or if anybody with type 1 wants to try that out, there is a personal profile which you can create. It's in the simulation menu. There's a profile section. And with that, you can set your basal glucose, insulin, and insulin sensitivity. And then when you use a preset, that's it. Those are the presets. But if you want to use more, specifically the longer term algorithms or inject insulin, there is a checkbox where you can say, I'm injecting insulin for type 1 or type 2. And then it's asking you a couple more parameters, which all of the type 1 people will know. I actually don't know them. I have looked them up. Let me see. Like build my own profile. Let me see. There it is. I inject insulin. Then you have beta cell function, correction target, insulin to carb ratio, insulin sensitivity factor, basal dose, and basal injection time is what you can enter in your own profile. And when you do that, you can basically set beta cell function to 0%. That would be type 1. Beta cell function 100% would be type 2. But you can inject insulin. And then you can inject insulin just as with a meal. You can say, I'm eating a meal now, and now I'm injecting insulin. And instead of insulin being dosed automatically by the algorithm, it gets dosed by yourself. And you can say, I'm dosing basal, or I'm dosing the bolus insulin. Wow. So you can do exactly that. And you can see what blood sugar does if you are on 0% beta cell function and you don't inject. So it just basically goes wild.
That is amazing that you've incorporated all of that. Like I said, I'm recording this on my phone, so it was difficult to see. It looked like, how many different foods did you incorporate? It looked like maybe 20 or 30 as an example.
No, there's way more. I would say order of magnitude 40, 50.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
What is on the screen is a few, but you can scroll that field.
I see. Okay. Got it. That's why I missed that. Okay. And with those foods, are they all, would most people consider them like quote unquote healthy foods, or did you also include a lot of like processed stuff, say donuts or bread or pizza, that kind of thing?
There is pizza in there. There is fruit juice. There is ice cream. There is a soda. Lots of stuff is in there. And if you want to, you can also enter your own meals.
Got it.
Which basically you give them a name and then you give them just the macros. That's just how many carbs are in there, which is, I distinguish between fast carbs and slow carbs. So basically monosaccharides, disaccharides, and starch.
Got it.
And then there's protein and fat. And you give it a name and you choose an emoji, which you want it to be depicted as. It's just I didn't want to upload photos and handle that and be suable for any unlicensed photos there. So it's just an emoji which you can give, and I think they're cute, so they make sense. You can create your own account. It is basically pick whatever you want. I'm not asking for an email. If you want to have an email, you can have an email. You can validate your email. But if you don't want, just create one with a name and a password. And then you can keep all of your custom meals for the next time and the next time. And they'll just display like any other meal. And you can also filter them all. If you say you are a carnivore, you don't want to see vegan meals, you can scratch out all of the vegan meals. And vice versa. If you're a vegan, you can get rid of all of the carnivore and non-vegetarian meals, for example. They're all tagged, and you can do the same with your custom meals.
Got it. Well, that's really convenient. And it's just so striking that, again, the example that you showed on screen that had the blood sugar swinging wildly up and down and had the insulin being elevated quite high during the day. Again, I just can't reiterate that enough. That was what most dietitians would consider a healthy day of eating. And it's still like that. There wasn't soda. That wasn't cookies. There wasn't ice cream. There wasn't the pizza. Like it can get so much worse. Imagine somebody who's out there trying to follow the standard advice. They're thinking they're doing the best they can, and they're wondering why they're not losing weight. Well, the insulin is elevated so high all day, and you can see it. So, like, try doing some of the opposite foods and try eggs and bacon and try steak, and just to see those curves so much lower is really striking.
Yep. Yes. So I've built a couple of day plans. I call them day plans, basically for anything that you want to eat. You can say, I want that on whatever 2,000 calories or on 3,000 calories. It just gets a multiplication on the portion size. Basically, the food is the same, but the portion size is different. Whenever I do it interactively, its portion size is 1.
Got it.
So whatever is in there, but for the day plan, you can say, I have, this beef steak in the interactive one. I see that here is 200 grams. However, if that makes sense to you, I don't know. I'm in Europe, so apologies. I haven't yet figured out how to actually change this to imperial units. So 200 grams would be a quite small beef steak. Then you just click it twice.
Got it.
And then you have like a pound.
Perfect.
Roughly, a little bit less.
Got it. Well, that serves us right for being on imperial measurements and being stubborn about that when metric makes so much more sense. So, yeah, that's amazing. Now, are you charging at all for this tool?
No, absolutely not. So this is, I wouldn't know why and how, because those people for whom it would be very useful don't know yet that it's useful to them. So asking them for money is wrong. I wouldn't make any money with that anyway, because they don't know that they need this tool, that they need the insight. Once they had the insight, they had the insight. No more need. And to me, it doesn't cost any money. I wanted to have it as a tool to get into some experience with technologies that I haven't yet worked with. And then I figured, let's publish it. And on the side, what I'm now updating most is the blog. A couple of articles a week, basically, with sometimes sarcastic, sometimes ranting, and sometimes just insightful things. I have a couple of insulin chapters in my back, and whenever I'm writing one article, I'm creating 2 new draft stubs with just a headline for, hey, this is another topic that I can do. On a podcast, I believe that was not your latest podcast. That was another one that I listened to today. I just found the headline, Good Carbs, Bad Carbs. So that's now also in the drafts, because basically everything that I figure gives me a nice opportunity to rant or a nice opportunity to explain, or both, gets in there. And the perspective is always my own, because I'm not certified. I am not giving anybody any advice. I'm just saying, hey, this is what worked for me. This is the insight that I got that made sense to me, and now I believe I understand it all, and all of the information falls into the correct places, and they all fit together. It's like a puzzle where the pieces are tightly interlocked instead of just all over anywhere.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, nutritional information is definition after definition after definition, but now they make sense and they support each other.
Yeah. Wow. Well, like I said, your articles are really good. The website is set up really nice. It's easy to navigate. I think it's amazing that you're offering this tool. What is the refining process look like? Like, as people are listening to this, they are wearing their continuous glucose monitors. How does that help? How do they get in touch? What do they contribute? Like, how does the tuning process work over time in the future?
I would say that very much depends on the people who are willing to share, what they are willing to share, and how much involved they want to get. I am happy with anything thrown over the wall. When somebody says, hey, here's something, use it, leave me alone. Or just working with people and checking, going through the list, and if they can explain what they did, what they observed, and explain their graph and their basically daily eating. Because, if you see I had a steak, for some that means I had a steak with potatoes and this and this and that. I had a burger. Did you have the patty, or did you have the whole thing with a bun, with the fries, with the soda, and so on? It probably would be best to have some discussion about that. It can be very quick. And the easiest way to get in contact with me is easily the feedback button on the site. There is, on every single page, bottom right, there's a feedback button, and you can just enter whatever you want. Enter your email or don't enter your email. If you want me to contact you, please enter your email. But that's the easiest way. As we spoke about the site will be linked. I can also give you an email address, but I think the site will be the easiest way. Then we just need one single site, and that's what it's for.
Got it. We'll definitely link that up. It's an absolutely incredible tool. And like you said, this isn't exactly what's going on in every person's body at every time. This is it gives you a great idea about how foods are affecting these two critical things, the blood sugar and the insulin inside the body, so that people can make better decisions about what they're making. I think it's incredible that you've developed it and you're offering it for free for people to use. Is there anything else about the tracker we need to know before we say goodbye for now?
Maybe just a wild idea that I had in the back of my mind, but it's hard to pull the trigger on that one, which is I was thinking to start a podcast on this as well, talking to people who have changed their diet for health reasons. That's my point there, and in German language. However, it is not very easy to find those people. Granted, I haven't looked too much. Next on my list is I'm going to try a couple of Facebook groups if I find people there. But I find the English market is very well covered with loads and loads and loads of podcasts and information. And all of the translation that I did here is basically just to spread the word a bit more, because translation is easy. But my main focus will be on the German side.
Amazing.
And if there are German-speaking people who have changed their diet for health reasons and would like to talk about that, then I would be very happy to collect their contact as well. And if I get enough, or once I get enough, then I am happy to start a podcast on this as well.
That will be amazing. Yeah,
and it doesn't need to be an hour.
I think it's cool that you're trying to focus in your neck of the woods and trying to help people local to you, because you're right, there is a lot of resources out there that are English speaking and not as much in some of the other languages and cultures out there. So this is incredible, Olaf. I'm so floored by what you've created, and again, I just think it's amazing that you're offering this to people, and it's such an amazing visual resource out there. So boy, it's been great to catch up. Always love spending time with you and getting to chat with you. And again, congratulations on making such an amazing tool. Again, one more time, where can people go to find your website, to find the simulator, and to find you and connect with you and your work?
Okay, I'm semi-spelling it, which is butter, BEI.de. And for any German-speaking people, you can easily remember that with Butter bei die Fische. And it's Butter bei de Fische, Butter bei dot de. So English, butter by bei dot de. And it had to be the de. I didn't want to go for anything else because that's part of that idiom in German.
Got it. Yeah. Well, you have now a few websites that have really creative names, and I absolutely love it. So thank you for explaining the idiom to us. And yeah, like I said, we'll have everything linked up in the show notes so people can easily find it. I really, really, really appreciate all your hard work that you put into making this and for walking us through it today. Like we said, we'll link the YouTube video as well in the show notes so people can go back and watch it because it's pretty striking to see as in real time what some of these foods are doing to affect people. I think
or just try it out. They don't even need to watch the video. They can just try it out.
True.
And basically all of the interactive pages also come with an introduction. So there is an interactive way to which explains the site. Here's what you do. Here's what you do. Here's what you do for the first time that you come. And then there's a compass somewhere on the top right corner, which you can always click and repeat the introductory tool.
Yeah, that's amazing. It is very intuitive to use and play around with. You made it really user-friendly. And again, to see the visuals is just absolutely amazing. So, Olaf, I really, really appreciate all your hard work. And thank you for taking the time to come on our show and explain all of that today. We really, really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Such an honor. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.